Hi, welcome. My name is Eric Simpson. I'm an online weight loss specialist working with busy professional women over 40 who are looking to lose weight, tone up, without having to count calories or spending hours exercising each day. And in my training today, I want to speak about, do you know the number one biggest fear to weight loss? And this is an area where I think a lot of people struggle when it comes to getting started on a weight loss program. And one of the reasons they struggle with this particular fear is because they've tried so many things before in the past, and I suspect you might be in that category as well. So today I'm going to talk about what that number one fear is, but more importantly, how you can overcome that fear. But let's start off by identifying what the fear is not, and it's three things that I know it definitely isn't. It's first of all, it's not a fear of not knowing what to eat, because look, the chances are if I gave you, a little bit of time with a pen and paper, you could write a perfectly healthy eating plan out, which if you followed, you would have success. So it's not a fear of not knowing what to eat, nor is it a fear of knowing that you have to make some changes. Look, I know, and everybody knows it. If you want to become successful at losing weight and keeping it off, some changes have to occur in terms of your thinking, your eating, and your movement. So that's not something that is a particularly big fear. Nor is this one either. There isn't a fear of knowing that you have to at some point make yourself a priority. Now I know for some women that can be quite difficult when they've spent years and years, maybe decades, of always putting themselves second or third, or sometimes not even thinking about yourself. Then to suddenly have this mindset where you say, oh right, I've got to put myself first, I've got to be the most important thing, I've got to be the priority. That can be a little bit of a mindset shift for you. But look, I already know that that is something that you have to do, and I don't think that is the biggest fear that you are faced with. The biggest fear that people are faced with is this one: fear of failure. Plain and simple, it's that. And it's understandable. If you've got a history of trying to lose weight and you've got a catalogue of failures, it's understandable that you'd be fearful of doing something again. Well, of course that's normal, because with that failure comes a lot of emotional turmoil, a lot of emotional scarring, maybe some embarrassment, maybe even some arguments with your significant other. Because the classic is, you get started on a weight loss, your partner goes, here we go again, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh, I just can't fail. And when you do fail, so rather than go through all of that, just don't bother starting, because you can't put up with their looks, their comments, or from family or friends, the sort of things that people would say if you tried and failed yet again. So it's pure and simple, down to the number one reason: fear of failure. And by the way, the reason I put some little bullet points in between the letters, sort of sectioned them out there, is because in my world, fear stands for false evidence appearing real. You may have heard that before, but when it comes to weight loss, after being in this area now for well over 15 years, I can tell you the fears that people tell me they have about losing weight, when we sit down and we speak about it, then it does become false evidence that appears real, and they can move beyond that quite comfortably. So I'm going to be talking about how we overcome that fear of failure. Now, one of the things that people typically do when they are faced with a fear is to run away from it. And the problem with that is, the more you run away from it, the bigger, the uglier, the more scarier it becomes. What I like people to do is actually to run towards the fear, because when you run towards the fear, it becomes less intimidating, less ugly, less fearful, and actually we realise that all along it was indeed false evidence appearing real. So get into your head that you have to run towards it rather than run away from it. So let's just forget about weight loss for a second and talk about some of the things you've done in the past where you may have been fearful of them. So let's take passing your driving test. If you can think back to when you took your first driving lesson, was there a little bit of fear there? Probably was. Did you have some failure there? You probably did. You probably found that you couldn't move through the gears smoothly, you're probably stalling. If you can think back to the hill start, did you do a hill start where you're rolling backwards and you thought you were going to crash? All of those sorts of things. The 3-point turn. Now, I'm giving my age away now, but when I took my test, we had a 3-point turn we had to do. So all of these things that you did in the past, learning to drive, I can guarantee you had some failures there. But did you stop? Of course you didn't. You kept going because the goal was big enough and you wanted to achieve the goal. Maybe in your career right now, I don't know how long you've been in the career you're currently occupying, but I'm pretty sure that you'd have had some failures in that career, but did you stop doing it? No, you didn't, you kept going. And of course, I've got a picture of a baby in there. Can you imagine for 1 second if a baby took 3 or 4 strides, wouldn't be strides in, the little dinky steps, wouldn't they? And if they fell, they decided after 2 or 3 attempts of trying that, they weren't going to try and walk anymore, they were going to become a bum shuffler. We'd have a nation full of not adults walking around, but shuffling around on their bums. So wouldn't it be great if you could sort of take a leaf out of a baby or a young child's book, because what they have got this ability to be able to do, which we as adults don't seem to have sometimes, is accept the fact that it doesn't always go well. There are going to be times when it goes wrong, and when we can accept that, then we can move forwards. And it's my guess, as a busy professional woman over 40, the chances are you would have had some setbacks in your career, but guess what? You've overcome them, and that's how you become a successful person in your chosen profession, whatever that might be, because you've overcome some failures and moved on to become successful. So how do we go about doing this? Well, first of all, number one, we have to accept that failure is part of the journey. Now, that might sound like a bit of a cliche, I know, but it's the reality, and that's exactly what the lady on the screen had to do, Marie, who's a client of mine, had to accept the fact that there was going to be some failure en route, because when you accept the fact there's going to be some failure, and actually when you think about failure, failure is only failure when you give up. It's not failure at all, it's just, okay, that didn't go well, how can I overcome that? And when you accept that that's the par for the course, that's going to happen, there'll be times when you don't eat as well as you should be eating, there'll be times when you don't exercise as well as you should have done, there'll be times when you feel less than motivated. And how do I know all these things? Because I have been through them myself as well on a personal level. So that's number one, you've got to accept the fact there's going to be some failure en route. The next thing to do to try and overcome this is to take small steps. And when I say small steps, the sort of steps that you feel you can accomplish with maximum confidence, because somebody else's small step might be too big a step for you. Let's be honest, everyone's a little bit different, so you have to find ways to take those small incremental steps over time. And when you do that, you're going to feel far more successful just by the fact you're taking a small step and you've succeeded at it. You're going to feel success pretty much immediately. And then the third important thing, of course, is consistency. It goes without saying, consistency is key to long-term success. What I've found is that people massively overestimate what they can do in a relatively short space of time, but massively underestimate how fantastic a transformation they can achieve in a relatively short period of time, not too long a period of time. I mean, the lady on screen there achieved what she achieved in less than 12 months. Now, £57 for some people might seem like a lifetime away, but when you adopt these 3 simple things, accept failure, take small steps and be consistent, then you can start to overcome that number one biggest fear of weight loss, which is fear of failure, because failure only really happens when you stop. If you're plateauing, that doesn't mean you've failed. If you've gained a bit of weight back, or you're trying to lose weight and you've gained some weight, that doesn't mean you failed. It's only when you decide to stop that's true failure. Hopefully you found that of some use, some insights. If you have any questions at all or comments you'd like to leave, then pop them below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification button so that you can be informed when I release my next training video. And until that point, take very good care and bye for now.